Alright, let's get this shit started. Hey everyone, how's it going? Janzer here. And some events occurred recently within the realm of my existence that unfortunately are events that I don't stand for, and I never have. And it's something that happened in one of our games with in Warframe, and within Alliance chat we had some people that were being disrespectful and rude. Now that's one thing. Being disrespectful and rude, I mean, I do that to my friends all the time because they're my friends. Having that attitude and being a little bit of a dick and an asshole, I mean, you know, it's fine when you've gained that level of respect, and in some cases, in certain gaming communities, it's considered fine. You know, I think gamers have that stigma, honestly, on them, that they're immature and assholes. I think a lot of it comes from certain games. Warframe's never really been that way for me for the past 2 years, over 2 years now, that I've played it. You know, you get some people that are a bit disrespectful to the developers or to other people on the forums, but outright attacks, racist remarks, death threats. I mean, I don't think that these kids understand that people take that stuff seriously. You know, they think that and it may not even be kids. It might be teens to adults. I don't know. But, I definitely follow up on bullying and harassment. I think any of you know that are on my channel regularly, you may have come in contact with me before, or you may have read some of my threads of comments before, where I will engage trolls, but I won't allow them to stay after a certain point, because they're not contributing anything but negativity. Now, I know that some people will leave those threads, but after a certain point, you have to understand that those comments, while they may be interesting for other people to read later on, don't really help anything. You can have your conversation with that troll, find out what's going on. Maybe that person only knows, or they've learned to speak to people in sarcastic tones or that kind of thing. You know, there's those kind of people. I was definitely one of them that have a very negative outlook on life, a negative way to respond to a lot of things, and or sarcastic. You know, there's that. By the way, if you're not interested in a talk, then I'm going to be talking about bullying and harassment and our culture that we're in. You know, this is like where we go a lot of the time, and we hang out together. So why the fuck should I not be concerned about it? So, you know, if you're not interested in that, I mean, it's already been 3 minutes, you know. Take off. Maybe I'll put like a small intro in the beginning there saying, hey, get out of here. This is not about games. I'll do what I can in the description and the title card. People will know what they're here for. So, why don't, you know, and people can say, there's a whole thing behind, you know, saying and doing, and I'm not much of just a speaker. I've only gotten into the whole speaking thing recently, like, you know, the past 5 years or whatever. I'm more of a doer. And when it comes to being harassed or being marginalized, being put in a corner, nobody puts baby in a corner, you know, being you know, that person that's picked on, or that, you know, it just, I don't stand for it, and I never have. And when I see that behavior, I'm not a bystander at that point. You can be out in the world, in class, at work, walking around, downtown, whatever it is. And a lot of people will do nothing when they see some harassment or bullying behavior because they figure, well, I don't know what's going on here, so I'm just going to stay out of it. It's not any of my business. And I understand that viewpoint. I really do. I respect it. I don't have any problems with people doing that because they're right. They don't know what's going on. When you see a situation, it could be the wrong thing. You jump into a conclusion. But I've never been one of those people. And that's probably a fault that I have internally. And I've never been one of those people that can stand by. Now, I can take harassment myself up to a certain point. And I do. I've learned how to. Whether it's growing up around, rough conditions and growing up around men that, treat you like shit or whatever because they're your peers, but that's what guys do. We kind of harass the shit out of each other. It's a part of the toughening process. But, there's an extent that you don't go past. You can't do that kind of stuff anymore and expect to get away with it without some consequence happening in the bigger world. And when you do, expect repercussions, because there's people like me that are out there that we can't stand for it. So, some people have asked me before, why don't you talk about yourself more? Why don't you give a bit about, who you are as a person and that? Usually they'll ask me on live stream, or, sometimes I'll get that in messages, private messages or whatever. And because I try to keep my person out of it as much as possible, I bring enough to it as far as the persona on the channel. That, I never really wanted this to turn into well, now you're going to hear about my life story and that kind of stuff. I don't find anything wrong with that. But I'm playing a video game here. Come on. Why do I need to, tell you about all that? Some people feel that they need to do that in order to, to get a connection with whoever, or they want to talk to people about what's going on with them, and I've got no problem with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It just wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to do. Not a big deal, right? Now we're going to fucking do it. So you can understand a bit why I don't find it acceptable and I can't not do something. There's a lot of people that were like, oh, that's not good. But do something about it. I'm not one of the people that just says, well, that's not good. So I'll give you a little bit of a history here. And you can laugh your ass off, or you can say, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Or you can be like, hey, I was that guy that probably harassed, people. I don't care. I'm just getting this out there because I accrue too much emotion about it, and without talking about it, then that's when stupid things I do, so so I guess we'll start back when I was like a little kid here. So when I was a pretty good looking little kid, I always had like the girls like me and stuff like that in elementary, and that pissed off boys, that pissed off other little boys, And so, kind of a stupid thing, but I know it all started back then, being treated differently for reasons that you had no idea why. I'm just a kid in elementary, and, people were starting to give me shit for being who I am. There were other things too, racist things that I wasn't aware of. Based on where I lived, I wasn't aware of them because as a kid, you're not, that's not part of my reality. My parents weren't people that, promoted anything about racism or never really talked about it. And when you're a kid, you don't know that teachers are treating you differently because of how you look. I'm American through and through. My parents are, my grandparents were, but down the line, my family line is split so radically that I like to call myself nothing but a mutt now. And I take pride in that. I think that there's a lot of different countries and cultures and stuff like that in my history that, I associate with being American. And I get shit for that too, which is crazy, but it's true. It's like you pick an apple up or a pear or whatever it is, and you take a bite out of it and it tastes like something else. That's I think a pretty good analogy. That's, I think, what people do when they judge. You look at someone or you listen to them talk, and your expectations of what they should be when they don't match up, that's a whole nother story. I really don't want to go down that route, but I've had to deal with that kind of shit my entire life. So anyways, I've had ethnic and cultural problems. I've never belonged to I've never fit in with any ethnicity or any culture other than just being American. That's all I fit in with. And moved around quite a lot when I was a kid. We moved around. We were not military, even though one side of my family was entirely military. It stopped with my mom, so I wasn't. My dad was, and his family was, but I wasn't. My siblings were either. I made the conscious decision to not be for different reasons that I'm not getting into here. But we moved around a lot, and there was some physical violence really early on in my life, as like one of my first memories, to me, to my mom. And I think that probably is what started the feelings of, the feelings of not wanting to be powerless, or not ever, of doing something more than nothing. Of course, when you're like 3 years old, what in the fuck are you going to do? So, so anyways, I grew up and I had these issues. Even when you're a child, you may or may not understand what's going on, but they're there. And, in elementary, like I said, yeah, I was apparently a good looking kid. I don't know, fucking all the girls like me. Fuck. So, and I don't know. When I was a kid, I was a kid. I didn't give a shit about girls. But apparently, some people cared that the girls liked me. And I lived in one state for a while, and then we moved to another state. And had the same problems, little boys not liking the fact that these girls like me, other little girls not liking the fact that these girls like me because they were jealous. It's a really weird situation to be in. I remember one time in the 3rd grade, this one girl apparently really liked me, but another better looking girl liked me. And so this one girl, she had two boys that were kind of bullies pin me down on the ground and take off my glasses. I wore glasses way back. And she said so she could, see what I looked like without my glasses on, because she had asked before, and I never acquiesced to that response, because I was like, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that. And that's just one of those situations, once again, where it's like that helplessness, being put into a position that it's out of your control, and I was a small kid. I know one of them was pretty little fat little fucker, and the other one was just tall. And I was just kind of a skinny small kid. It was for a very long time. I grew tall pretty quick, but that's another, that's something else. So, that's one of those instances I remember way back then. And ever since I was a kid in the 1st grade, I started working with men. Like, we would do hard labor. We would go out, cut trees, tear down houses, paint houses external. And if you don't think that's hard, fucking, you stand on a ladder for 8 hours a day and paint the outside of a house. Dig, fence posts so we could put up fence. We did roofing, laid gravel for driveway. I mean, we did every type of manual labor you could probably think of. We would get junk cars and then strip them down to recycle them, because you get money for the copper wiring and all that. And these were like, cheap giveaway cars or whatever, but you could still make money off of it. We did whatever we could. There was a lot of harassment from those guys and stuff, because I'm just a kid around them. And I had some stepbrothers that didn't appreciate the fact that, I had my original dad, and he left at one point because he was a piece of shit. And then I had a stepdad who didn't like me, and I never fit in there either. Stepbrothers didn't like me. And, you just build up you see the history that's going on here. It's just this history of, always being an outsider, always being a person that people were trying to push around and fuck with, and never being in the position of power, being little and skinny and, being a kid. So, I dealt with all that. It's not that much of a different story, I don't think, than some people. I'm sure some people went through that, even if they didn't go through every single situation. It is what it is. It's like, all right, and I'm not crying about it. I'm just giving you all an idea of why I'm going to be doing what I'm doing now, which is going after bullies, because fuck those fucks. So, here's another instance. I remember when I was in middle school, moved down to another state, and the culture there was different, and the people were different, and I didn't fit in with some people that thought that I should fit in with them, and it just didn't help. So once again, an outsider, being the new kid, and then being different from what people expect, being just was never great. And when you get into middle school, most of those kids have known each other since elementary, so they've already got their little crews going and all that. And I just happened to be in an area where there was like a lot of gang members and stuff like that. So I remember one time these two cholo dudes were giving me shit. They'd always give me shit, but I never backed down from that. I didn't give a shit. They would always, and the thing is, they wanted me to back down because of their reputation of being associated with a gang. And my crew were always the outsiders, the nerds that could never get friends, the weird kids. That was my crew. And it was very few of them usually. Usually I only had like one or two friends around, maybe 3, 4, I don't know. That's probably the most. Because even among them, I wouldn't really like them. Anyways, so you get the idea. So these two kids harassed me. I never gave into that crap. I'd always give them crap right back. They had no idea that I would do all this heavy manual labor, and that they, that I was just, I got more crap from the grown men than I did from the kids that I hung around. So of course I wasn't scared of them. I remember one time there was at that same middle school, there was this shrimpy little fuck. I was skinny, but I had already started growing, in height. And there was this short little gang member dude that rolled with his crew of like 5 or 6 people, and they were associated with a bigger gang. And they would just go around picking on people and expecting people to, back down or whatever. And, my one friend that I had, he was like a scared little puppy, even though he was bigger than me. And I was wearing glasses, of course, big glasses too, fucking Coke bottle rim glasses, big old frames. In the military, they call them I think they call them the BCDs, birth control devices. Now that those frames are fucking cool because of fucking hipsters appropriated it. Back then when I was growing up, that shit was like, yeah, you fucking nerd. Yeah, that's the kid we're gonna fuck with. That's what those were. So this guy, like, I don't know, I would never back down to him. So at recess, he decided, I think this was about seventh grade or so. At that grade, you can't really do a whole lot of damage, but you can do some damage. 7th or 8th grade, something like that. He comes like shouting at me from a distance. What are you looking at? And his crew's around him. Yeah, get him. And I'm just like standing there, and my friend's like, dude, what are we doing? We got to get out of here, man. Don't talk to them. Run away. Let's run. I'm like, what am I going to run for? So they know that that's what I'm going to do. And I'm like, look, you see over there? There's a vice principal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let them do whatever. And then I'm just going to go straight there and tell them what's going on. You don't back down and you don't keep silent. So the little guy came running, and the stupidest thing happened. He jumped in the air to kick me. And I'm standing there the entire time. He jumped in the air to like jump kick, like fucking Double Dragon or some shit. And I just like took a step to the side, and he went fucking sprawling on the ground like an idiot. Oh my God, did that piss off his crew and him? Although they were kind of like, they didn't expect, no one expected it. They were like, what the And they did expect me maybe to try to run or fight back. And instead, what I did was I just like looked at him and I was like, you don't want to mess with me, because I'm going to go over there and I'm going to report you right now. He's like, you do that, I'll kick your ass. And I was like, all right, come on, man. Let's go. Let's go over there and you kick my ass while I'm walking that way. So I just turned my back and I started walking over to the vice principal. Got him his ass in trouble. Did he try to do anything? Nah. He got sent home. He got spanked or something. People spanked when I was growing up still. And yeah, they never fucked with me. There was always a worry on my part. There was a small worry of retaliation from gangs when I would walk home, getting jumped or something like that. But it never happened. I got lucky. I think I got really lucky on that. But same middle school, there was this big, fat dude, tall. Oh, dude, I think I remember his name. I think his name was Terrence. Tall kid. And big fat. And when you're in middle school and you're a skinny little kid, this big kid is going to like man-sized kid practically would just like throw you around or something, And he was also a little like slow or something, so he was quick to temper because people would mess with him probably because he was slow. Just a little, Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just really dumb. But I remember one time the coach left us not in the gym, but in the locker room. He left one of these like big kids in charge. So what do these big kids do? They get together at the little bully club, like 3 or 4 of them, and they're telling everybody else, line up against the lockers and we're going to throw dodgeballs at you, and you better do it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and kids were doing it. They're lining up to get fucking hit with like, and I'm like, what are y'all fucking stupid? What is this? What is this? What do you think you're doing? So I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm not going to do that. And in fact, I'm going to go tell, the principal or something. This is bullshit. And the big kids are all like, you better not. We're going to kick your ass. We're better not. So I walk out of the locker room area. But while I'm doing it, I'm gearing them up because I want their focus to be on me so they leave the other kids alone. You see, I don't stand for that shit. And I'm not going to let other people, become victims to it if I'm around. That's bullshit. And so their focus is all on me. And I know something is going to happen or it's going to be close to happening. So my friend is just all, this same friend, he's all scared and he's like, dude, no, leave him alone, no. And I had been dealing with these fuckers, one of them spit water on me one time and, just trying to instigate me to start something first. Just stupid shit. bully stuff. That's all it is. Bully stuff. And I'm talking shit to the biggest one, the big fat fuck. And he's all, wow, kick your ass on the bus, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, come on, you fat fuck, and just keep, going after him verbally while I'm walking backwards and walking out. Because once I'm in plain view, they know there's of like, the hallway and stuff like that. Well, there wasn't a hallway. We're outside, but the school was right there. This was a separate building. Once they know there's more people that could potentially see what's going on, they're freaking out. And I'm just walking. I'm like, come on, motherfucker. Let's do this, You bad? Let's do it. Come on. And I was like, I'm just going to go straight over there. And so that's what I did. I went straight up to the fucking principal, told them what was going on. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. What ended up happening was I just left. Yeah. And they left. They left the building because they were freaking out. And so that big kid, he ended up getting back at me. He followed me, and I was going up the stairs to a room, and he's still following me, talking shit. And I'm thinking that I'm safe at this point. I'm at the top of a stairwell, and I think that maybe I'm safe, But I didn't expect him to move as quick as he did. So he caught up to me and slammed the back of my head against the wall. I mean, we're talking about a kid that was probably like 200 something pounds at least. And I'm like, well, at that point, I couldn't be more than like 80 pounds, 70, 80. Because let me tell you, when I graduated high school, I was 120. As a 5'10", 120. That's a different story, though. When I graduated, that was nothing but muscle, because all I had been doing for years was working hard labor. When I was in middle school, on the other hand, I was still small. And plus, when you get a sneak attack like that, come on. What are you going to do? So, yeah. Oh, man, I saw stars. I saw them. I heard them after he slammed my head. And it was a... I might have had a chance at something, but I didn't expect him to move as quick as he did and sneak up, and get me. So after that, I was like, oof, on the ground, and he took off, and he's like, yeah, I'm talking shit, whatever. I'm going to get you later. I'm going to get you on the bus. And I'm like, battle damage, and that's when I go to the principal. And, I report that. And he gets in trouble. He gets suspended. He gets spanked. I'm taking them all to task, but if, I have to incur damage to myself, well, that's what it is. So I don't even think I told my parents about it, because I just, to me, it would have gotten me in trouble. So anyways, so yeah, after that, I ended up just kind of walking a lot, walking home miles, whatever. Anyways. So let's see, what's the next time some stupid shit happened? In high school was just total crap for me. I didn't fit in anywhere. I had a couple of friends that were kind of drifting and doing their own thing. I just didn't belong to any groups. I was too smart for one group and thought that the smart kids were too much of assholes to belong to that group. And even though I was pretty strong and really fast, I never was allowed to get into sports. My stepdad was a control freak, so he kept everybody around the house. It was a weird, fucked up life. I'll tell you. All I did was work, go to school, and go home. That's it. And so, I just, this ton of, energy that never went really anywhere except for working, and that was about it. Anyways, I remember one time in high school, there was, there were all kinds of fights all the time. A bunch of gang members everywhere, different races and that stuff. And I remember one little fucker, one little cholo dude that, he I don't know what, they just pick you because they think that you're a target that's not going to do anything. Or I was, alone a lot. It's kind of a loner because I didn't really have a choice. It's not like I wanted to be like that, but I just didn't fall in with anybody's bullshit, and I wasn't good at following people. I did my own thing, and I called if I could sense bullshit, sorry, I'm not going to follow it, It's a tough situation to be an individual in high school when everybody's just trying to fit in. And, so I didn't have any backup. It's just me, and this one fucking kid, I swear to God, just, and he wasn't like an asshole to me before. And then just maybe they wanted him to like, initiate and go fucking fuck with someone in order to be part of the gang. You know how that shit goes. And so, this one time, I think I was a sophomore, maybe a junior. I might have been a junior. There was this one room, locker room, and he's talking his shit, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so then he comes at me, finally, and I'm like, God damn it. And I saw it all, coming. So he comes at me, and I just sidestep again. I got really good. I'll tell you what. I got really good at defending myself. I forgot to tell you that. I got into a fight in the 4th grade with 2 bullies that followed me home, and we ended up, being respectful to each other later on, because you're still kids then, I don't know. That was a kind of a funny fight. But this guy, this time, I could, I was pretty good at defending myself at that point. And so I had, the kid comes at me, and I just sidestep, put my foot out, put my hands on his shoulders as he's coming at me, and just push him into some like equipment, and he crashes into that, and these kids are around, they're watching at the door, and I'm like, everybody stay the fuck out. And I'm telling the kid the entire time, don't do this, man, because I'm going to report you. And I'm not scared of any retaliation. You can never back down to this stuff. You can't. And I'm telling him, it's going to be bad on you. Don't do it. And he's just, keeps trying the same shit. I keep doing the same thing. Keep moving to the side, pushing him down. Because I don't want to hurt him. My goal is not to hurt anybody. It never was. But I don't want people to hurt me or other people. So, he's still going on this. And then finally, I push him into, he comes at me again, charges at me again. And I got to end it. I got to do something to get out of that room, because it's a very small room. And I know he's going to hurt me at some point if I don't end this quicker. So I push him into a door, because he's running at me, and I just let him, I sidestep him again, slam him into the door. The guy doesn't know how to fight. He's a fucking idiot. A lot of those guys don't know how to fight. And so he hits the door with his body face first, and I get the back. I get him by the back of his head, and I smack his head into that door about 2 or 3 times. To kind of shock him, I didn't really go for like damage and make him bleed or try to knock him out. I do it to shock him, to freak him out, and it worked. So I walk out of the room, and he's all, where are you going? Whatever. And I'm like, I am going straight to a teacher that I know is right in this other room. So if you feel like you want to keep going on, come on, buddy, let's go. And he's like, you better not do that, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be worse. I was like, man, whatever. I'm going over here. So if you want to keep fighting, let's go right there where the teacher is so we can discuss this. And, I didn't, that time he backed down. And I honestly, at that point, I don't know, because I felt that I had resolved it. I don't think that I specifically told the teacher that time, because I knew he was actually pretty much, I know it sounds weird, but I knew he was a good guy. I just didn't know. I think that somebody put him up to it. Probably the gang. Because we had gotten along before. And honestly, after that, he knew he couldn't do anything to me anyways, we got along fine again. It's one of those, maybe it was just one of those guy things. Who knows? Sometimes we got to fight. So, that happened. And it's just, in my mind, you got to understand, though, at the same time I talk about this stuff like, it just happened and I did that. But the entire time around it, I worry about retaliation. I worry about, that kind of stuff happening. I worry about my parents getting pissed off at me and me being in trouble for that. So, what else? In high school, I remember jocks would harass me. They didn't actually ever do anything to me. It was verbal harassment. I got verbal harassment from a lot of people. I do remember one time I found out one of them had been writing on my jacket. I think that was, maybe I was a junior, and I saw that guy again when I was a senior. And I remember we were in an English class, and by the time I was a senior, I had shaken off all of these problems that I had with my stepdad, belittling me and verbally and physically, abusing. And I stood up to that guy. And if you could stand up to the person that's giving you all the shit, you can stand up to anybody. So I remember this stupid jock was like giving me trying to make fun of me, like in English. It was the same guy that had written on my jacket. And, I mentally jujitsu'd his ass. He said something like, he had nothing left. I was just coming back at him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, well, you smell." And I was like thinking to myself, you know what? I probably do smell because I work my ass off. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I smell like sweat. And I was like, we're in an English class, and that's the best that you've got. And I just laughed at him. I said that in front of everybody, and that neutered him. I never had to deal with that guy again because he got ridiculed by everybody else there. They laughed at him. They saw what I could do. This 120-pound, 5'10" skinny guy, as far as they thought I was skinny. But I mean, I had been doing tree work, roofing at that point. I was skinny because I was nothing but muscle. That's why I could, handle myself. And I think that was the last direct type of bullying that ever happened to me. That was the last thing that I ever dealt with. No one's ever tried to bully me. Because when you're an adult, you don't usually deal with that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't usually present itself that readily. But I had grown up with a life full of harassment, bullying, and just ready to fight because people were always coming at me. In college, I remember there was this guy that he would get ridiculed just because they could, because these guys could, these frat boys could. And so me and a buddy of mine at that time, we stood up for him. We gave those guys some shit back. And we kind of took him under our wing as the beta male of the group. But I mean, this was a different story of like, we're kind of joking about it. It was like, no one's giving this motherfucker shit except for us. And, he's a good guy. The guy's got a better life than I do probably right now. I don't have a bad life at all. But I'm just saying, like, this was a good guy, and nobody deserves that treatment. Nobody deserves to feel like, because of what I went through, I'm always going to have that in me to recognize that in other people. And I won't ever let people be on their own if they allow me in, to say, hey, what's going on? Even if I just say, hey, what's going on? I had to check to see if I had my mic muted because that's like 38 minutes of shit. With the last couple of things I can really think about is like, I remember being in classes in university and students just giving professors shit, being little shits and being entitled little fucks. And I went to a few different colleges, universities, and I went to college, and then I fucked that up, and then I went to work, and then I went back to college later on. So I was about maybe 5 to 10. I think I was about 10 years older than the people I was in school with. When I can think of these, these incidences that are coming up right now, I would never let the students get away with that stuff if it happened more than a few times, because, like I said, I can stand some kind of harassment, if it's mocking or whatever, but you got to understand professors they're people too. And yeah, so, I would even do that. I would even call these guys out in class, because some of these people just have never been called out in their life. A lot of us as human beings, we don't want to engage in this. We don't want to be the people that have to stand up. Sometimes we do, but we want to avoid conflict, It's not our goal to be, there are some assholes out there that are looking for it, and they're looking for it for no reason. And there's also some people like me that are maybe looking for a fight, but we're looking to stand up for people. So we're not looking to create fights, but we're aware of what's going on. So anyways, I've always been in that position to stand up for people. The last thing I can think of is a job that I had recently. There was an employee that would do this silent harassment. I don't know how do you describe it, but they should push people's buttons and all that kind of stuff. Just put people in situations that was bad for them, set them up to fail. And we're talking about people's livelihoods at this point. This is a job, and you have a person going around creating conflict and drama for no reason, to the point of, not allowing them to progress in their career. And when I had first joined that company, I was like, I recognized it immediately. I have that detector. And, I told the partner, because when I joined my company, I told them, I've got a certain set of skills. You guys have a certain set of needs. I think together we can work together fine, as long as we recognize that we're separate entities, individuals, and that we have what the other, wants, needs. And if we can keep our dialogue and communication up, I think we're good to go. So I'm not just an employee, and I don't encourage anyone to just have their head down and work. I encourage people to understand that we're doing this for our livelihood. This is our life. So, I recognize this bully is really what it was. Even if it was a woman. I forget what they call it. It's like silent manipulation, passive aggressive. That's what it is. Passive aggressiveness. But also putting roadblocks in front of people's careers and talking bad about them to the partner. You can't have that. You cannot have someone fuck with other people's livelihoods. You can't have that in a company. So I worked up to a position of being able to direct changes in the company, and we finally got rid of that person. They finally understood and saw what I was, advocating, which is this person is a toxic. They're bad for the entire company. Even if they have needs for their own life, the needs of the rest of the company are being damaged. So one person can have their kicks, so they can feel a little happy by creating panic and dismay, and that's not acceptable. You give people chances, and we did. Oh yeah, we gave this lady chances and different opportunities, and when they can't, then that's when you got to say, you know what? We got to part ways here. And we did it as adults, because that's who we are. That's where we are. So, this is all in relation, going back to the Warframe incident of racist comments. I'm not going to stand for that shit. If I see anybody in Warframe throw out racist comments, I will report you. I will fucking do it in a heartbeat. If I see people harassing other people, I may step in and say something. And if we can't come to an understanding of like, hey, that's not acceptable, that's not cool, then there's going to be some consequences. So if you're still hanging around, it's like 45 minutes later here, thanks for listening. And now you got an idea of why I do what I do, why I handle trolls the way I do, why I don't accept negative and insulting comments, I will engage, and I will ask you to clarify if you do that on my channel. But, you know, as I said in one of my other videos, the internet is potentially a place for us to go and kind of fuck around, and people to do these one-hit, like, oh, I'm going to leave negative comments and be a troll, whatever, because it's fun for me. But if you come to my area, don't expect to get away with it. You might leave a few comments, but I will follow up on it. And after a certain point, once I recognize what you're doing and what's going on, you'll be out of there. You know, I care about the community too that I've cultivated here on YouTube. It's my social network. So, you know, that's pretty much all I got, guys. I gotta eat something. I'm fucking hungry. But if you stuck around, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.